Hi, this is TapCat, and welcome back to my ongoing quest to build the ultimate theme park. It's TapCatLand. And in a lot of ways, I actually do feel like this tropical area is the closest I've come, at least so far, to living up to that somewhat ludicrous claim of building the ultimate theme park. We have certainly put more energy into this one and more time than any of the other areas. Actually, probably pretty close to more than all the other areas combined. Now, one thing I have not done yet is place any of the small rides that come with the game in this area. So far, we did a couple of things from the Steam Workshop. So what we're going to do is place several of the, standard rides and also use ride skins from the Steam Workshop to help kind of ground them in the environment and give them more atmosphere. So this, I think, is not a bad skin for the Rocktopus. It definitely has a lot going on. I could probably do with a little less cannon fire, but overall I think it's pretty nice. And of course, for the Whirly Rig, we also have a skin. I think this one is also quite nice. It also ended up providing me some inspiration for something we're going to do a little bit later. I'm going to leave the details of that for later, but just keep that in the back of your mind. Placing the rides was no great challenge, even with the skin, but I felt like it was time to face up to something that I had realized a while ago, which is that this path was kind of on the plain side. I had brought the plants down the slope, but there was a pretty big patch of bare ground, and I had never really addressed that. So I realized that it was time to fill that gap. So this is a relatively small area between, the kind of lagoon that we set up with the pirate battle and then the stairs. There's a much larger area past the stairs, which is also bare. Now, I've said before, if you're on a tropical map, then they have a terrain paintbrush you can use that easily fills in, lush green grass, and it even has a little bit of flowers in it. And then you could paint with that in seconds and just dot a few flowering plants like this one to help give it more character. But because I'm on grasslands, I don't get that. And the grass that I can paint, it just does not have that tropical feel to it. So if I want to create it's not really an illusion, the appearance of this lush area, unfortunately, you kind of have to do it the hard way. So I did. I committed to filling in these gaps and really trying to make this look like a tropical area. So that's what I did. Now, as I said, this area was somewhat time consuming, but it was also pretty straightforward. Where it got more demanding, that's not really the right word. Where I decided to mix things up, though, is on the other side of the stairs. How did I do that, you might ask? Well, I decided to do a second waterfall and a stream. Now, this again is where I think not having a plan in advance of what the entire area is going to look like, it doesn't help me. Because you don't really need two waterfalls, and especially because the one that I'm about to do isn't even really going to be visible from the path. I'm really just doing it so that this little stream I'm also trying to create next to the path makes more sense. And quite honestly, I'm probably overthinking it because it's a theme park, and if you just want to have a little creek running along a path, you can just have a little creek running alongside the path. But I'm kind of crazy, so I decided, well, it should come from a source like a waterfall. And so I started digging the trench and setting out to build this. Now, thankfully, I would say I have gotten at least a little quicker when it comes to building a waterfall than I was with my first. And what surprised me, I guess, is how much differently this one turned out. It's much more robust, as you'll see once it's done. But I once again had to go through the process of putting in a bunch of rocks so that it would look like a rock waterfall. And then, all these different fountains and whatnot. And then again, unfortunately, I would fill in this slope with more plants. I'm kind of amazed. I knew my PC was, pretty respectable when it comes to computing power and stuff. But as many times as I hear people talk about how laggy this gets when you have too many objects on the screen, I have to say my PC overall has held up pretty well rendering this stuff, because this area, oh my goodness, I have so many things, like not just the stuff that I'm placing, but also these custom rides, that I imported. They have like a couple thousand items. I mean, it's crazy how much is going on in just the tropical / pirate area. And yet, so far at least, the game has not been brought to its knees. So keep your fingers crossed, and hopefully it won't be. Now, for the most part, I'm going to leave the hours and hours that I spent placing these plants off camera. But I will just show you the first steps. I placed a ton of these green plants down to basically act as ground cover. Instead of doing bunches of the red flower, bunches of the yellow, and so forth, I decided to take a different approach. So I essentially used this green as a kind of carpet, and then went back later and just dotted it with some highlights. And I don't know if it's better. I don't even know if it's faster, but it is a little bit different. And I didn't want this area to be too homogeneous and too generic, So I don't mind trying something different like that, if nothing else, just to get a sense of what you like better, At any rate, once I had finished with populating that slope, I did have something else that I also wanted to do, and that was to kind of close off part of this area. I didn't really want to bring the plants down right up to the walkway, so I decided to make this little rock fence. So I strung a number of them together and made a blueprint out of that. And as you could see, then it was just very quick and easy for me to copy that across. And then there was just a very small area left to fill in. So that was a relatively rare but definitely welcome instance of where I was able to save some time, and at the same time, I think, give the area a little bit more polished look, maybe. Now, as nice as it was to build out that slope and the stream and everything, this path has two sides, not one. And this one was still barren. So I decided to build a planter, put a couple palm trees in there, nice little assortment of flowering plants. And, in the end, I think it turned out as a pretty respectable little planter. And it certainly looks tropical. If not, obviously it doesn't look like something that would just grow naturally on a slope. But that wasn't the point. So I was also able to replicate it. I just shuffled things around a little bit so that they wouldn't be exact copies. But I was pretty happy with that. And then once the planters were done, I went through and looked for other scenery I could place. So I did just a couple basic things like the mast and netting. But I also wanted a fountain. Now, they have fountains you can use blueprints for, but I wanted something with a pirate theme. So I just did a little experimenting with the different pieces available and came up with this. I'm sure I probably could have been a lot more inventive, but overall, it was pretty much what I was looking for. And with that done, I also decided to go ahead and put down some platforms in this middle area so that it wouldn't, again, just look so plain and so empty. This grass really doesn't have a lot of life to it. And so I wanted to bring something that would give it more of a sense that, this place has been built out. It's not just half done. And this brings me back to the whirly rig. And when I said that skin was giving me some inspiration, and it was for this. I've been trying to figure out what to use as a barrier so that your sight line when you're in the pirate area would not include the entry walkway and the sci-fi area and all these other things. And I decided to build a wall made from wooden panels with ivy covering it. And so I did that. And why was it inspired by the whirly-rig skin? Because its walls were made of thick ivy. Now, I'm going to admit, up close, it actually looks exactly like I wanted it to. From a distance, there's these black shadows on it where it doesn't feel like a shadow as much as it does that it's just not rendering the whole thing, and that's rather unfortunate. But overall, I feel like it definitely could have been a lot worse. Much like the planted slope, there was another task that I had spent a lot of time doing already that I had to revisit, and that was placing torches. These pathways leading to, the smaller rides, I had never lit. And this is something that I'm pretty determined we're going to do throughout the entire park before we're done. I want all of the pathways to be lit. Now, I should also say I really wanted to put some kind of lighting on the slope with the plants, on the waterfalls and stuff, and I could not make that work. I couldn't find a way to do it in a way I was happy with. First of all, water does not light well in this game at night. It just doesn't. The water itself turns black no matter what light you shine on it, so that's pretty much a dead issue. When it comes to the slope, I could have had literally like a spotlight hanging in the sky shining down on it. That mostly worked, but it looks pretty stupid, like it was one thing to do that disguised as little flying saucers when we were in the sci-fi area, but here I couldn't really see a similar motif. But I tried putting area lights down low, and the problem is the shrubbery is so thick that it's just getting blocked. And so each light illuminated such a tiny area, it wasn't even really worth doing. So, at the end of the day, what I decided is, look, then it's just dark at night. Like the walkway isn't, that will be lit. But not everything will show perfectly at night. I can't help that. So it's a shame because I would have really liked to have had that part of it be more vibrant at night. But it is what it is. And unless I can think of a better way, I'm going to leave that as it is. One thing I haven't really used up to now, and that's adding audio to the park. Now, this obviously isn't really going to be for our benefit most of the time, but I thought, this would be kind of a cool thing for guests. So I added a sound effect of a quiet river here. And I wanted in general to just bring different sounds to different areas. So when they first come out of the pirate grotto, they'll hear the sounds of seagulls. And then, there's, I think, a pirate battle when they get closer to where the Pirates of the Caribbean style ride is. And, it just adds another dimension to the park. And I I don't really even know in terms of game mechanisms what that does. I mean, I assume it's like scenery where they enjoy being there more, but that's it. I guess it is why I did it. But, in part two, I just want it to be like a more complete theme park, a better theme park. I think I've said before, my goal is to make not just one that is successful in the game, but one that I would want to go to or that you might want to go to. All right. We're getting short on time. And what I want to do, and normally I would show you a montage of the completed part, or this section of the park by now. But I'm going to try something a little bit different. So I'm going to wrap it up here for now. But when we come back, I'm going to show you the finished product. And then I'm also just going to talk a little bit about, like what I learned in this area, what went right, what went wrong, that kind of thing. Kind of an experiment with a different format, and you can let me know what you think of it. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching. I hope we see you next time.